Susan Lee's elevation to Liberal Party leadership comes with clear and immediate challenges, which she didn't shy away from today in her first media conference.
The type of opposition we will be is that every day we will stand up for our values to anyone, anywhere, and we'll do it in the public debate and we'll do it in the parliament. When I see that this Labor Party, and it'll happen many times, disagrees with those values or acts not in accordance with them or puts in place legislation that is not in the interests of the Australian people, you will expect a very tough, very determined leader in me and a very strong, very determined team.
Well, the big question for Lee, her deputy Ted O'Brien and the Nationals leader David Littleproud is which government Labor Party legislation they help pass through the Senate and where they draw a line in the sand. But where they oppose, the Labor Party will then turn to the Greens to help the passage of its legislation. For the coalition, there's certain to be landmines aplenty. So let's bring in here Andrew Carswell, the former Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Scott Morrison, now Director of Headline Advisory. Many thanks for your time today. I just want to go, Andrew, to this is the issue for the Liberals and the coalition now, and that is they've got to know what to pass and they've got to know what to really oppose. Because, again, there's going to be a lot of legislation that's going to go through this parliament very, very rapidly.
Yeah, Ross, I think it's understanding and getting the balance right between political pragmatism and having policy positions that are aligned with your values. As outlined by Susan today, I thought it was a good articulation of where they stand on that. They will stand prominently on issues where there is alignment with their values, but they will need to be pragmatic on some issues. And the Senate that the government faces this time around is vastly different to the one last time. They can deal with the Greens or deal with the coalition. Now, there are elements of policy that the coalition will want to deal itself into, particularly you think of taxation policy, super policy, and environmental approvals, which will come up in the next 6 months after consultation with the industry more broadly. Yes. So I think there will be that level of pragmatism and they'll approach every policy in its merits.
Well, I put together this little list that we've got here of key Labor policies that I see where there might be some friction. The taxing of super funds over $3 million and quite clearly also the taxing of unrealised capital gains. There's obviously tax cuts which have been, the government wants to push through, $1,000 instant tax deductions as well. There's also underwriting the first home buyers with 5% deposits, effectively doing away with the mortgage lending industry, the mortgage insurance industry. So some of these are pretty important, but the big one you'd have to think is still going to be energy policy, isn't it?
Well, it's the fundamental difference in approach between the two parties. Yes, they'll have agreements and disagreements on tax. They'll have agreements and disagreements on other areas of policy. But there is a stark gulf between the parties when it comes to energy policy. And you won't see necessarily an approach from Susan Lee that will be instantaneous in what they are putting forward in terms of their energy policy. I think you saw today a leader that is wanting to be consultative, that is wanting to listen, that is wanting to try and understand why the majority of Middle Australia got up and packed its bags and walked away from the Liberal Party. So I think the approach on their own policies, whether that be energy, whether that be tax, will be taken very slowly because you need to bring the party rooms together and with you at the same time. You don't want to go forward and beyond where they are.
So I heard Susan Lee on that very subject saying she won't make captain's calls as the leader of the Liberal Party. Is it possible to be the leader of a political party without occasionally making a captain's call?
Well, you have to show leadership, but you have to listen to your party room and you have to consult properly. And I think you saw in the last 3 years there was a block on policy formation within the coalition. Whether that be within the opposition leader's office or whether it wasn't encouraged because they wanted to take a small target approach to an election that they thought they were going to win. I think you will see a different approach this time. You will see a policy framework put in place within the party rooms, not just in shadow cabinet, where policy is formulated properly and over the long term. It doesn't need to be done in the next 6 months. We don't need to hear from the coalition in terms of their policy offering moving forward in the next 6 months. But they need to start that process now and get that underway.
Andrew, you know a lot of people would suggest that the Liberal Party in particular needs to move hard to the right to be able to make a significant point of difference between itself and the Labor Party, to go back to what many people call the traditional Liberal values. I just wonder whether that really is an approach that is going to win back voters that have been lost to the Labor Party and to independents, including the Teals.
Well, I think on economic policy, what you'll see from Susan is a tack towards the centre. But that tack towards the centre is not coming from the right. It's actually coming from the left. The economic policy offerings that the Dutton opposition put forward to the Australian people was perhaps the most left-wing economic policy platform that we've seen since the 1970s. It was extraordinary. It was chasing a populist narrative, and that's come about because of the dislocation between Australians' view of how governments should manage economic policy from the COVID pandemic, where Australians were put on the teat of government resources to get them through, and they were never taken off that. So the policy offering from the Dutton office was to pivot to the left to try and get those people that are still in that zone of forgetting the aspiration, forgetting individual responsibility, and going after people that are relying on compensation.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's really going to be interesting to see exactly where they land with all of this and, of course, what blows the Labor Party might inflict as well. Andrew Carswell, former Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Scott Morrison, thanks for your time today.